my screen?
Yeah. Okay, just did that. See if it works for you.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
And can everybody hear me as well?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Like Jennifer was saying, my name is Ayelen Osorio, and I am the content and community manager here at netcoins.ca. Netcoins is a cryptocurrency exchange platform. And what that really means is that it's a platform where you can buy, sell cryptocurrencies. And we're based right here in Vancouver, Canada. So we do focus on Canadians looking to invest in cryptocurrencies. And I joined the team at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And I really mean when I say this, I really didn't understand cryptocurrencies at all. Like I found that the more I learned about it, the more confused I was getting. I found the content out there to be just so technical and dull and really hard to wrap your head around. And this was a pain point that we realized a lot of people were having. And so when I joined the team, we decided to focus on really bridging that gap and creating content that was educational. And it wasn't content that was going to be technical and really difficult to understand. It was going to be content that was, using your everyday language and really making cryptocurrencies accessible. So, it's been a bit over a year since I've been at Netcoins and, delving into the world of cryptocurrencies. I feel like I've come so far, but also realize that there is so much more to learn. So I hope that the more I learn, the more I'm able to bring all you guys forward with me. And like Jennifer said, I'll answer all those questions at the end of the webinar. But just a little bit of an agenda here. I'll be covering, really quickly, like what is Bitcoin? Why are people investing in it? What's been all the buzz around Bitcoin really in the last year? What's prompting this surge of investors dipping into Bitcoin? How do you buy Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? And how do you keep your Bitcoin safe? And then, as I mentioned before, we'll jump into the Q&A. Okay, but before we jump into Bitcoin, I kind of want to go over a quick history of money, right? So if we take a look back, we realize that there have been a lot of things that have served the role of money throughout time. At one point, seashells performed the role of money, and then it was cattle and salt and alcohol, and then precious metals like gold and silver. And then we had the introduction of fiat currencies or government money like the Canadian dollar. And when we had the fiat currency, it was really the first time throughout history that we had an institution or a government step in and say, this is what the currency of the nation will be, and you will pay your debt in this currency. Otherwise, before that, it was the market themselves that decided what would perform the role of currency. And so it's really been interesting to see now people wanting to go back into that world where it was a market that decided what a currency is, what is a valuable asset, and hence you see the rise of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Right now, there are over 4,000 cryptocurrencies out there. And that's a question I get asked a lot, actually, is like, why are there so many cryptocurrencies? Like, what's the need, And there are really 2 points that I bring up when that question comes up. The first one is that we live in a world where there are already 180 currencies. So the idea of having multiple currencies isn't new. And the second point I bring up is that, we have to think of cryptocurrencies as like projects or different businesses, right? Each cryptocurrency has a different mission, right? Bitcoin's mission is to be a store of value. And there's another cryptocurrency that is meant to act as a smart contract, and that's called Ethereum. Right. So over all those 4,000 cryptocurrencies, not all of them are created equal. Not all of them have the same purpose. And so when it comes to investing in a particular cryptocurrency, it's really important that you do your research and decide which of those cryptocurrencies or projects you align yourself with, that you believe in the team, you believe in the mission and the technology, and at times they have their own blockchain. So that's a little bit of sort of the background of why there are so many cryptocurrencies. But so it's impossible actually to talk about all those cryptocurrencies in one webinar. So that's why I wanted to focus this session on Bitcoin. And because it has been buzzing a little bit mainstream media these days, and I think it's a great starting point. And we can do another webinar later on with other cryptocurrencies if you'd like. So what exactly is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is digital money. It is money like the dollar or the euro or the yen, or, I'm from Venezuela, or the Venezuelan bolivar. But it exists only in a digital form and is not managed by central authorities like banks or governments or corporations, right? Or any group of people coming together to decide the fate of a currency. And many people actually refer to Bitcoin as digital gold, or sometimes call it gold 2.0. And that's because Bitcoin shares similar characteristics to gold in that they are both finite, they're both really difficult to produce, and so you can't inflate its supply and therefore value it too much. And so just like people tend to invest in gold and really not trade it every day, but buy it and hold it, a lot of people also buy Bitcoin and hold it. Right? So if I delve into other characteristics, we'll see that Bitcoin was the first and most popular cryptocurrency. So it was invented in 2008 by somebody called Satoshi Nakamoto. And we don't really know if Satoshi Nakamoto is a man or a female or a they. We don't know if it was a corporation, if it was an institution or a government agency. We have no idea who they are. What we know is that they created this currency, they developed the code and launched it to the world and remained anonymous ever since. We don't even know if they are alive. But I think that's really interesting because, as you can imagine, if you have somebody that's stepping into the world and saying, hey, listen, I just created this currency and a new asset class that might disrupt the financial industry, that is going to challenge our traditional assets, you can imagine that that wouldn't go so well and that perhaps it'd be put in jail. And so it's not surprising that they would remain anonymous. The second characteristic of Bitcoin is, like I mentioned earlier, it is limited in supply. So the rule is that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin produced. There will not be more or less than that. Right now, we are at about 18 million Bitcoin. And so once we reach 21 million, there will not be any more Bitcoin that are produced. And so this scarcity is really what gives it its value, what a lot of Bitcoiners think that will help protect it against hyperinflation, what will allow it to hold value over the long term, right? And it does not have any physical bills or coins. Bitcoin at the end of the day was created by developers, cryptographers, really highly intelligent people, but perhaps they weren't the best marketers. And so thinking of Bitcoin and not being physical bills or coins can be confusing, but it just lives online. It is a currency of the internet era. And so, I hope that kind of helps. And number 4, it is mainly used as an investment, as a hedge against inflation. Again, because of its properties in that it is scarce, it is difficult to produce. It acts like gold. It takes all the best characteristics of gold, but it makes it digital so that you can send it around the world at very minimal cost and pretty instantaneously. And just like gold, where you don't see it being traded every day, the same is true about Bitcoin, although you will see some people trying to profit off of the volatility, which is typically not recommended. And number 5 is really, I get asked this quite a lot, which is, where does it get its price from? People think that it sort of gets its price from this mysterious, ethereal place that nobody knows about. But it is set in the same way that stocks and real estate and commodities like bananas are set, and that is through supply and demand. And different markets will have different prices, but there are websites and platforms that aggregate all those prices to pull a global price average. And that's the price we use when we say Bitcoin is at 70,000 Canadian, which I think is at right now, last time I checked. So it's about 57,000 US dollars. And finally, it's a global asset, like I said. So me being in Canada, I can send Bitcoin to somebody in Spain in a way that's really instant with minimal fees. And I don't have to wait for a confirmation or wait for anybody to approve that transfer. So it really is convenient for a lot of people. And the fact that you can just send Bitcoin directly to another person really kind of opens it up to other people around the world that may not have access to traditional banking, or have ways to prove, sort of like documentation to open a bank account that struggle with that, right? Like the more developing countries, they can partake in this economy because all they need is the internet connection.
Hi, Len. Sorry to interrupt. There's some gray triangles at the bottom. Are those intentional?
Gray triangles at the bottom. I do not see them on my end.
Okay.
Is it like annoying you? Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah, it's way better now. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. That's helpful. Okay. And okay, so now we have sort of this basic understanding of really what are those unique characteristics of Bitcoin. And next question is, who should invest in Bitcoin, right? And I typically say anybody that's looking to diversify their portfolio, right? Like they can benefit from having a portfolio that has a mix of traditional assets, like stocks, and maybe real estate, with non-traditional assets like Bitcoin, right? It's a way to de-risk your portfolio. And I'm sure a lot of you know about that. But what is really interesting for me is that when we take a look at what's been happening, with COVID and where we're at now, there's a lot of uncertainties, right? There's a lot of things that have gone online. We don't know what the world will look like as a society, as a financial world. We don't know how it's going to come out on the other end. So hedging your bets and having that mix of traditional and non-traditional assets can really future-proof you in a way. And it doesn't have to be that you have to be fully invested in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. It can be a very, very small amount. And we also noticed at Netcoins that, the crypto world is really filled with like a lot of men, and we want to see more women stepping into the world of cryptocurrency. We want to see more women understanding it, participating in the discussions, playing around with it, buying and building wealth from it as well. We want to bring them along. And so a big part of our focus is to, create partake in conversations with women and get them to understand this really new technology, amazing asset that is Bitcoin. But it's not just regular retail investors that are investing in Bitcoin. We're seeing corporations and institutions as well. Right? Last year, MicroStrategy came up and announced that they had bought $250 million worth of Bitcoin. And that was because they were afraid of all the money printing that was going on. They were afraid that we were going to enter this inflationary era. And so they were protecting themselves financially by putting $250 worth of their cash reserves into Bitcoin. But now over the span of 6 to 8 months, they've now reached over $1 billion put into Bitcoin. And they've made, I think, it's now worth $2.3 billion. So they've made a good profit and provided shareholder value as well. And then I'm sure you've all heard that Tesla invested in Bitcoin as well. A similar argument that, they're worried about inflation, they're hedging their bets, and they're betting in Bitcoin because it is a scarce asset, because it is similar to gold and it is digital. And we also have another company called Square, and they invested $50 million into Bitcoin. But really, what the commentary that was going on behind the scenes was that a lot of people in the Bitcoin community, a lot of commentators were saying that Tesla investing in Bitcoin was sort of giving corporate America and the corporate world the green light to invest in Bitcoin. And what is kind of expected to happen right now is that a lot of corporations are probably looking at their balance sheet, their cash reserves, trying to think, how do we come out of the other side okay after COVID? And they're probably having discussions with their teams, with their legal teams and their operations team. What does it look like if we invest in Bitcoin? How soon could we buy it? What platforms do we use? How do we store it? They're having all these big conversations, and potentially even with the SEC. They're looking at ways into investing in Bitcoin. And, it wouldn't be surprising if we saw a lot more corporations announcing that they're investing in Bitcoin as well later on this year. I think right now there's a lot of education that's going on behind the scenes, a lot of research, and looking at ways to get involved. And the great thing, though, is if you look at everybody buying Bitcoin, right? Like if you look at the price now at $70,000, you might be like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. But it doesn't work like stocks work. If you want to invest in an Amazon stock, for example, that might cost you $3,000, and you would have to save those $3,000 to invest in Amazon. But investing in Bitcoin is great because you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. You can choose to buy the entire Bitcoin or 0.5 of a Bitcoin or 0.0001, right? Because it is very divisible. And so even if you are risk averse, even if you're cautious, worried, you're still not sure, you're in the fence, you can invest in Bitcoin with just $10. And you can see what that experience feels like. You can see what it feels like to invest in Bitcoin, see if you're comfortable with that, and see what the experience is before you put in more money into Bitcoin. So it's similar to the way that we, buy pizza. We can buy a whole pizza or we can buy slices of pizza. It's completely up to you. Now, of course, another question I get asked often is, it's very risky. And my answer to that is yes, it is risky, right? Like all types of investments, they carry with them an inherent level of risk, right? But a lot of people say, well, yeah, but it's very volatile and you never know what's going to happen with it. And I always share my experience being from Venezuela, where there is a lot of volatility. But it's volatility that tends to trend down, right? Where the currency loses its value. And you compare it to Bitcoin, where yes, it has volatility, but at least it's trending upwards, right? Since its inception in 2008, so it's been about 12 years. If we take the average growth of Bitcoin, it's been growing about 200% year over year. And so, yes, Bitcoin is volatile, but you have to kind of remember that it is a new technology. It's a new asset class. It's maturing as an asset. It's developing as a technology. We're going through growing pains, but it is becoming more robust. And as I'm sure you're all seeing, like there's a lot of people that are now starting to take notice and starting to question it and look into it and kind of thinking, should I be buying Bitcoin? So it's kind of like a really exciting time to be learning about Bitcoin. So I applaud you all for being here. And so again, you might think that the price of Bitcoin being at $70,000 right now is too expensive, but there are now a lot of financial analysts and there's a lot of people that are coming out and commentators saying that they expect the price of Bitcoin to actually continue to rise. JP Morgan Chase came out, I think at the end of the last year, to say that they expect that Bitcoin will reach about 146,000 USD at least at the minimum, as Bitcoin competes with gold as an asset class. And the Winklevoss twins, who are big Bitcoin investors, they've created their own cryptocurrency exchange. I believe they were also the co-founders of Facebook. They produced a report where they estimated that Bitcoin would reach about 500,000 USD. And a Dutch institutional investor who is anonymous and goes by the name of Plan B, as in Plan Bitcoin, estimates that it will reach $1 million USD. So when you take these estimates into account, then you realize, yes, 70,000 is a lot compared to where it was about 5 years ago, but where it's going, it may make you think that you're actually pretty early. So if you're wondering, okay, well, that's great. How do I buy Bitcoin? The easiest way is to go to a cryptocurrency exchange platform. And I think at the beginning when Bitcoin came out, a lot of the places where you could buy Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies was really confusing. It was really messy. They didn't have a great onboarding. The platforms they made no sense. And it was really actually pretty difficult to buy Bitcoin. But as the years have progressed, a lot of these exchanges have upped their game. They've created amazing teams that build awesome products. And at Netcoins, we've done just that. We've worked really hard to build a platform that is really, really easy to use, whether you are a new investor or new to the crypto world, or you're a seasoned investor, you can get started with us pretty easily and quickly. And so what you would have to do is you create an account and you get verified in a couple of minutes. What you might find is that you get in right away, or you get asked to provide more documentation, like your identification or a selfie. But this is simply because of a process called Know Your Customer, which I'm sure you've all heard about before. This is a Canadian requirement. It's a requirement from the Canadian laws because we are a money service business. But once you're in, the next thing you have to do is deposit Canadian dollars or US dollars to fund your account. And you can do this through Interac e-transfer, online billing, bank wire, or if you have cryptocurrencies, you can deposit them as well. So once you have those funds in your account, then you just click a button, say buy, and you can choose any of the 7 cryptocurrencies that we offer. And again, you can buy $10 worth or $10 million worth, completely up to you. Something that I also want to talk about here is I find that a lot of, personally, like my friends that get into the Bitcoin world, they get sort of obsessed with the pricing and they're looking at it all the time. And what we offer at Netcoins is an opportunity for you to set price alert notifications. So if you want the Netcoins platform to let you know when the price of Bitcoin increased by 10% or reached a specific number, like say $80,000, we can send those notifications over to you immediately. And there's also limit orders. So you could say, hey, Netcoins platform, buy $100 worth of Bitcoin when the price reaches $65,000. And the Netcoins platform will buy that for you. Even if you're sleeping, that order will get through, executed right away. So what do you do after you've bought your Bitcoin? It's similar to once you invest in other assets as well, right? You can continue to invest and there's different strategies. There is dollar cost averaging in. So you can decide, okay, well, this year I'm going to invest $1,200 in Bitcoin and I'm going to put in $100 every month and until I reach $1,200, and that will be it. And so you kind of average out the price at which you enter. You could set a specific percentage of your wealth into Bitcoin. That could be 1%, that could be 10%, whatever feels comfortable for you, whatever you are, comfortable with potentially losing as well. And this one's really interesting. This one is called buying the dip. That is when the price lowers, right? What happens? You usually see 2 camps of people. You will see one group of people that will get really worried and nervous and sell, but you will see another group of people that see that as an opportunity and they're actually stacking up and they're buying constantly when the price lowers, right? They're buying the dip. And eventually over the long term, they're the ones who tend to benefit because they've sustained through the highs and lows and they've seen the value of Bitcoin appreciate over time. And as I am sure you all know, time in the market beats timing the market. We always have to try and remind that to people because it's a new type of investment, so it can make a lot of people wary. And we always remind them that it's true about really any asset. Like if you look at real estate, you're hopefully not flipping them, too quickly. You're waiting for time to pass and waiting for your real estate to appreciate in value. And always remember, do your own research, right? This webinar is a super high level introduction into Bitcoin. And I hope that you will take this and continue on and learning about it and ask questions and test your ideas on your friends and coworkers and colleagues, see what they say, see if your ideas still stand. That's going to be really important because the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency world is first and foremost technological. Technology moves so fast. There are changes happening really fast all the time. And so it's really important that you keep up with it or try as best as you can. And so that you know what you are investing in and seeing the changes of these projects. Of course, never invest more than you're ready or willing to lose. It's always a very, very important one. Now, keeping your crypto safe 101. This is another common question I get is, well, what if Bitcoin gets hacked? And that's a totally fair question. What people, I hope, understand is that the Bitcoin network called the blockchain is actually a network that is spread around the world. So there are thousands of computers and people around the world spread around. And so you can't really find a central point of weakness to attack. And this is why it's been very, very difficult to hack the Bitcoin network. And in fact, it's never been attacked. It's the only network in the world that's never been attacked successfully. Where most of the mistakes happen is in how people themselves manage their Bitcoin. So the mistakes have been mainly human errors. They've been because of shared passwords, because they haven't learned how to manage their own cryptocurrencies, and partly because the exchanges and the wallets out there before weren't up to par yet, but we've come a long way from that. So what we recommend is for people to not share their password. So if you buy a Bitcoin in an exchange, don't share the password for the exchange with anybody. Another recommendation is that once you buy your Bitcoin from the exchange, the Bitcoin community highly recommends that you grab that Bitcoin and send it into a Bitcoin wallet. And this is a digital wallet, right? And this is because of this quote that goes, not your keys, not your coins. What that means is that if you are not the only person that owns your Bitcoin, then you don't own it, right? There was a really hard lesson back in, I think it was 1933, where a lot of people went and tried to pull their gold from their banks and they couldn't. And they learned the really hard way that when you leave assets in third parties, there can come some risks associated with it. And so it's really recommended that you transfer your cryptocurrencies into a wallet. You might want to check bitcoin.org. They have some amazing resources on Bitcoin and also some options for Bitcoin wallets. It'll outline the pros and cons and also what the price is associated with. You can also set two-factor authentication with your Netcoins account. And so this is just making it harder for other people to log into your account because they have to prove through multiple ways that they are who they say they are. If you receive an email, look out for clever misspellings and links and usernames and website addresses. Never download or click on anything that seems fishy. And hover over CTAs before clicking on them just to make sure that you actually trust them. And that's pretty much it. I hope this was helpful. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. I know it is a lot to delve into Bitcoin. But I hope that it's also exciting because it is a really exciting new asset and technology. There's so much work that's going on. And if you want to continue to learn about it, feel free to go to netcoins.ca. We've launched a cryptocurrency academy for beginners. And in there, we delve a little more into what is Bitcoin, what is the blockchain, how does it work, how do you keep your cryptocurrency safe, and a few other exciting topics. So I think now we can open it up to questions and answers.